As you know, as a church, we've been partnering with Compassion for quite a few years now, and we are so thankful that Don is able to come with us. Don used to be Donna's boss back in the day, used to sort out Donna. That's a big job, I tell you. And we're delighted that Don can come and share a little bit about the work of Compassion and inspire us and challenge us as well for where we are and all that we're doing. So I'm going to invite Don to come forward now. Thank you so much.
Hey, good morning. To be fair, I think Donna sorted me out, for those of you who know Donna. But hey, it's very lovely to be here with you all this morning. Thank you for your warm welcome, your hospitality, for the tea, the coffees, it's just lovely to be with you all this morning. I bring greetings and thanks from Compassion. On the screens, I'm going to just throw a few stats at you, almost a bit of a thank you for the one to the next one. I will point when I want to move. Is that okay? It makes me look quite authoritative, so we'll do that. For the 59 children that you guys, as a church, as a fellowship, have sponsored. Those children are kind of spread out a little bit. I don't know if you can see your sponsored child on that screen. We'll move to the next one. Those children are spread out across 15 of the 25 countries Compassion work in. You can see that there. We'll move to the next one quickly. 27 of them are girls, 32 boys. Typical houses in Kenya are constructed of mud walls, dirt floors, and of tin and corrugated iron roofs. And that, to be fair, is actually probably a very good home. You might be thinking that is not so great. From experience, I travel to Africa maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year. I can assure you that is actually very good. So move to the next one. That's some of the letters that you've written. So your sponsor children have written to you 216 times, and you guys have written to your sponsor children 111 times. And if you are a smartphone user, if you have an iPhone or Android device, you can download the Compassion app, and you can do all your letters through the app if you like doing that sort of thing. Move to the next one. So what that has meant is, over this last year, those 59 children have had 60,630 hours at the Compassion Project. That's at a local church where church leaders and pastors and elders and volunteers have cared for your sponsored children. They have been given a minimum of 15,160 meals. That's not each, that's combined. They've had a lot of meals provided by the local church. They've had at least 345 medical checkups in the last year, and 92 Bibles have been given to your children. So these kids are not only getting saved, 158,000 of them were saved last year. They made a commitment to Christ, but they're actually evangelizing to the local communities and giving Bibles away. And move to the last screen, or the second last screen. And what it's meant in the last 12 months, you guys have given £25,928 to a child you'll never meet. To a face that is probably not much more than an image on a screen or on your fridge or on your fireplace. But thank you so much on behalf of those children, and we'll move to the last little bit. So thank you so much. Why don't you give yourselves a big round of applause for your generosity and your kindness. Great. This morning I want to share with you all from Proverbs chapter 31. And this is some very famous verses by a very wise man. And it says this here in Proverbs chapter 31, verses 8 and 9. It says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute, for the rights of all who are destitute, and speak up and judge fairly, defend the rights of the poor and the needy." Lord, this morning, I just pray that you give me the wisdom, the humility, and the strength to really share what I believe you've laid in my heart for these wonderful people. Lord, we thank you for this local church, Lord, and all that it does in this community. And for these next few moments, we just invite you to be here with us. In your name we pray, Father. Amen. You know, this morning, I want to share with you guys just a few little stories. I hope that's okay. I'm probably not the most eloquent of teachers or theologians, but I am good at sharing stories. So this morning, I want to share with you 3 stories. The first story is about the boy, the dad, and the bug. And you'll know this story, no doubt. You guys are very well educated. I can see it from just the nods and of approval and the chin kind of stroking that I'm getting already. But the little boy sat down with his dad over some lunch, and the boy says to the dad, "Dad, I really need to speak to you about some bugs." And the dad said, "Why do you need to speak to me about bugs?" "Because, you know, they're big and they're disgusting." And he starts sharing all these reasons why. And the dad said, "Look, son, I'm trying to enjoy a nice meal here. why don't we stick a pin in this just for a few minutes and we'll revisit it after lunch? And the boy's like, but Dad, this is really important. The dad's getting quite cross at this point. He says, son, we're not going to talk about this any further over lunch. So they continued with their meal, and probably about an hour or so later, they sat down watching some TV, and the dad says, son, what was it you wanted to speak to me about with those bugs? I said, Dad, it doesn't matter anymore now. And he said, well, why was it so urgent an hour ago? Because an hour ago, Dad, there was a big giant bug in your soup, and I really had to share that with you. You guys will have heard the story about the boy, the mum, the dad, and the monkey. You'll have heard this one as well, no doubt. Little boy, he's at Sunday school one day, he hears all about Adam and Eve and creation and 7 days, and he goes to his dad and says, Dad, is it really true where we came from? And he said, yes, son, it's true. We came from Adam and Eve, and he explained the whole story of creation to his son. And the son is mostly happy with the answer, and he went, okay, we came from Adam and Eve. So he then went to his mum and said, Mum, where did we really come from? Was it really this Adam bloke and Eve and all that sort of thing? Did that really happen? She said, well, son, I sort of think that, but I also sort of think that we came from monkeys. And the boy's totally confused at this point, and he said, so, is it Adam and Eve? Is it monkeys? Were Adam and Eve monkeys? What is this? He goes back to his dad and says, Dad, Mum said something totally different from you. You said we came from Adam and Eve, but Mum said we came from monkeys. And he said, well, son, your mum's technically right. And the boy looks, everyone came from Adam and Eve, but your mum's side of the family, you see, all of them, they came from monkeys. The last story I want to share with you guys today is this. It's about the blind man, the mute, and the everyday hero. I don't know if you're like me, but I love the story of heroes. When there's new superhero movies coming out, I saw the latest Avengers movie a couple of times. I thought it was great. I get really excited by things like that. The new Star Wars film that's out later this year. I can't wait to see these sort of things. And I think all of us love the story of these kind of larger-than-life heroes. You know, before I had kids, before I was married, actually, I've done it earlier this year, much to my regret, but I go sometimes to the midnight premiere of films. The films are on a minute past midnight because I love these tales. It takes you to another world. It's maybe a bit of an escape from everyday things. We see these men and women who have extraordinary skills and perform extraordinary feats, whether they have a suit or whether they have lots of money and buy gadgets and gizmos, or whether they're just born that way. But for me, there are some real life heroes in my world. You know, as I grew up my entire life, my dad has had real poor mental health, and my mum has been like this real hero of mine. She is this stalwart Christian soldier, if you want to call it that, but she prays every single day. My dad didn't come to know the Lord until I was 16, and hated the church, hated Christians, hated the thought of the mention of the name Jesus. But through my mum's faithfulness and prayer every single day for his salvation, he came to know the Lord. Another one of my heroes is my wife. I don't know if she's listening, but she is definitely one of my heroes. But I love my wife. She is consistently loving and caring and patient. She puts up with me, thank God. But she is one of the most loving people I've ever known. But for all of us, we kind of have everyday heroes, don't we? We have like someone in our life. Maybe it was a teacher who really inspired you to go on to further studies. Maybe it was a minister or a pastor. Maybe it's your minister. Maybe it's someone within your world that has really just challenged and encouraged you. Maybe it's your parents. But they're just ordinary, everyday heroes who are living out their faith on the front line. I know you guys have been through a series on that. You know, when I was a teenager in school, I remember being in a hall, maybe about the size of this one, and I was in the first year of high school, and I'm over in the corner with my pals. We were having lunch and just enjoying some whatever, as we're 11, 12 years of age. And a friend of mine called Doug, who came up from the same primary school, was in high school with us too. And things for Doug went really wrong in high school. You know, I thought it was a food fight one day, as food and biscuits and crisps and what have you were getting chucked at Doug. But actually, it wasn't that. It went from food being thrown at him, to food being stuffed in his bag, to food being forced in his mouth, to Doug being pushed down the stairs and thrown in toilets and kicked downstairs. Things for Doug went from bad to worse. And you know, every single day I was a good Christian boy, went to a good church. I knew my Matthews, my Marks, my Lukes, my John. I could tell you the fruits of the Spirit, the gifts of the Spirit. I could tell you the fivefold ministry. But on that day, when things started going wrong for Doug, I'm over in this corner, and I remember it's one of the first times in my life I felt God ever really kind of challenge me or speak to me. And it was, you need to go help Doug. Can't do that. It's too hard. hard. Got to go help Doug, can't do that. And every day I saw this happen to Doug, I'm like, can't do it. I can't do it. I was like wrapped in fear. I was paralyzed. I was like shaking on the inside. Can't do it, can't do it, can't do it, can't do it. Things got so bad for Doug that after around 2 years, he actually had to leave the school. And part of me was relieved. I was like off the hook. But God's kind of got a sense of humour, because the bus that I took home every day, it went on such a route that every single day there was Doug walking home. Every single day it was like a reminder of the fact I should have spoke up. I should have said something like it says in Proverbs. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor. And Doug needed an everyday hero, and I was like an everyday coward. I think we kind of assume sometimes, don't we, that the heroes are born. We assume that it's something that's given and not something that's developed or grown. For us, I sometimes think that we've fictionalized heroes. You know, famous Christian kind of leadership guru is a man called John Maxwell. Spent many years as a pastor. Now, he actually does consultation for like the US government. I know recently he was a consultant for the Treasury Department is it the Treasury Department within the UK? I'm not sure what the equivalent would be, but he said this. He said, choose any subject in the globe, and you spend 30 minutes a day studying that subject for the next 2 years, any subject you want. And within the next 2 years, you'll be in the world's top 10% on that subject. It's 30 minutes a day. I think that this thing of becoming a hero, or maybe even getting fitter and losing weight, we think that it's impossible, it's so hard, but 30 minutes a day and you can become an expert within 2 years. When I think of like your faith in the front line, when I think of outworking your faith, when I think of becoming an everyday hero, I sometimes think we think it's way beyond any of us. We think it's way beyond what any of us are capable of doing or what we could do with our lives. You know, the word compassion actually means to suffer with. And the Latin, it was pronounced splagnizomai, and that literally means to come alongside, to put your arm on someone and to suffer with them. And for me, that's what a real hero does. They come alongside somebody and they suffer with them. They don't allow them to go through pain and tragedy and heartbreak and depression and anxiety. And they don't allow them to do that on their own. We act and we suffer with. There's a story one day of a man, and the man's walking along, and one day he falls in a hole, and as he's in the hole, he shouts up and he says, help, can somebody please help? And a businessman comes by, and the businessman looks down and he said, sir, can you please help? I'm stuck in this hole and I don't know the way out. And the businessman writes him a check and hands it to him. For those of you who don't know, a check's like this kind of old school way of transaction of money, like before PayPal and bank transfers. So anyway, he has this check and he's a little bit richer, but he's still stuck in a hole. And then a holy man comes by and he says, sir, can you please help me? I'm stuck in this hole. He's becoming even more polite because he really needs help. And the holy man looks down and says, well, I can't come in the hole and help you, but what I can do is I can write you a prayer. So he writes him a prayer and says, bless you, my son, and walks away. So he has a prayer in one hand, a check in the other, but he's still in a hole. And finally the man looks up and he sees his friend and he says, Joe, can you help me? Joe, I need help. Joe says, yeah, no problem. So Joe says, step back. He steps back and Joe jumps in the hole with him. And he said, what are you doing, Joe? He said, I'm stuck in this hole. Why are you here? And Joe says, because one day I was stuck in a hole, and let me assure you, I know the way out. When it comes to really practicing our faith in the front line, when it comes to almost compassion, it goes beyond just getting the warm and fuzzies and a nice thought and a nice prayer. But I wonder if God is challenging you and I to come alongside some people and to suffer with. And kind of unlike me and Doug, I wonder if you have something more in your life than I did in that moment as a young man. I was wrapped up and paralyzed in fear. It says this in Matthew chapter 12, verse 22. It said that there was a man brought before Jesus who had a demon spirit that made him both blind and unable to speak. You know, the prophet Isaiah says this in Isaiah 59:19. He says this, he says, when the enemy comes in like a flood, which it does feel like that sometimes. When things are going bad, it feels like a flood against us. It says that the Lord raises a standard against them. I sometimes think that when we see the enemy come in like a flood with issues like poverty and injustice and sickness and disease, and we just see all these life circumstances, work and family dropping and just in a really bad place, we often drop our standard. But I wonder if God is challenging you and I to raise our standard a little bit. For us not to become like the blind man who can't see it, or we're unable to speak. And I sometimes think that's what happens. Like me in that moment with Doug, I actually made myself blind to it, and I became mute to it, but what Doug needed was an everyday hero. And I wonder if for you guys, you've seen situations that you've actually just became blind to, you've chosen to overlook, therefore you became mute. Or you have seen it, and you've just been unwilling to speak up and do something about it. In Proverbs chapter 31, many theologians believe that 31 it says that these are the sayings in verse 1 of King Lemuel. Many believe that this was actually Solomon, like a bit of a stage name for Solomon, and an inspired utterance taught by his mother, Bathsheba. For those of you who know Solomon's journey, Bathsheba had an affair with David, and Solomon essentially became David's son through that. God used David's sin to actually see Israel go to a place of incredible prosper. And Solomon was seen as the wisest man who ever lived. So this was wisdom his mother passed on to him. Listen, my son, the son of my womb. Listen to my prayers. Do not spend your strength on women or your vigor on those who would ruin kings. Bathsheba almost ruined a king. It is not for kings, Lemuel, to drink wine or to drink beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and deprive the oppressed of all their rights. Or let beer rather be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember the misery no more. But, verse 8, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. In other words, this is the kingly advice that I give you for your leadership, for your influence, for your power, for your hunter, gatherer, warrior, wisdom, for all the credibility that you have. Forget about women and beer and power and all that sort of stuff that you have, and instead focus on those who are poor and are needy. I need you to speak up and defend them. In other words, don't be blind to it, don't be mute to it, but you've got to be their everyday hero. Help, defend, and speak up. And if we're to be a church, a body of believers who are going to outwork our faith in the front line, what does your front line look like? Is it your neighbours? Is it your friends? Is it your kids? Do you tell your kids you're proud of them before they sit an exam and not after they get the results? Do you tell your wife that you love her despite how difficult circumstances are? The Bible talks about honouring and thanking and just believing in your leaders around about you. Do you thank your leadership within the church, your eldership who carry so much, praying for you, believing for you, for your kids' leaders, for your youth leaders, for your friends that are around about you that have helped you? I wonder if you could be the encouraging word in someone's ear that they need. There's perhaps people in here today that just need your encouragement. I sometimes think Christians have forgot the art of the smile. How amazing is it when someone smiles at you? It almost lights up your day. It changes your disposition. I wonder if someone in your world just needs an encouraging word from you today. Or I wonder if perhaps one of these children that are with me today, 59 children sponsored by you guys as a church is incredible, but there's a little lad here, Washington. That's a really stately name, I felt. And Gloria. Washington is 10 and Gloria is 5. They need a sponsor to come alongside them. They need an everyday hero that can come alongside them at £25 a month, that can write a letter to them, that can pray for them, that will be willing to send pictures back and forth, that will be willing to become their everyday hero. But I have no doubt you have circumstances in your world that needs you to be the everyday hero. Whether it's stepping up and saying, hey, I can help with providing some meals for Alpha, or I'm going to get involved in the worship team or set-up team, or I'm just going to make sure that every single day I lift up Donna and Keith and the family in prayer and the rest of the eldership of the church. Or I wonder if perhaps you've just got to be a better friend, a better neighbour. Try and put yourself in someone else's shoes for a little bit. You might be sat here thinking, I've got no idea how to become a hero for someone else. Well, you could start with a smile. You could start with an encouraging word. You could start with a text message as you walk out the door today, or a phone call. Because someone's probably waiting on your phone call. Hey, it's great to hear from you. I think that the gift of hospitality sometimes can get lost in the busyness of life. Just hosting someone over your home for dinner. Hey, we're having a barbecue, come and join us. Or hey, every Sunday we're going to put an extra seat. I mean, I'd love to join you one Sunday if you wanted to do that. I'm sure someone would. But I wonder if there's just something you could do just to encourage someone else. I wonder if you became blind to it, because there's need absolutely everywhere. And I sometimes think this world doesn't need another explanation of the love of Christ. It needs another demonstration of it. The world doesn't need to know necessarily a theology, but it needs to know how much we care and how much we love with the love of Jesus. I wonder if you became blind to it. Or you do see it and you think, man, who am I to do anything about it? I would almost believe that that's a lie from the enemy. You are so able to do so much in the world that you occupy. Or I wonder if you could just become someone's everyday hero. We have poor and needy everywhere. Based on some just rough statistics that I looked at over the last few days, you guys could fill Tynecastle and Easter Road 3 times over in the city of Edinburgh with the poverty that exists here. That's in Edinburgh. That's one of the wealthiest cities in the UK. Yet poverty still exists. Poverty exists globally. There are 400 million children in the developing world, that's outside the UK, that live under the poverty threshold, which is about $1.80 a day. It's about the equivalent of a 500ml bottle of Coca-Cola. That's what they live on a day, less than that. That's the poverty line, 400 million. Many of us have developed like compassion fatigue. We've depersonalized it. We've become jaded. Oh, that's just another charity that wants my money. That's just another person that needs things. I've got needs. Well, the Bible says this, that those who refresh others, they themselves shall be refreshed. In other words, when you serve and you help other people, it refreshes your own soul. I wonder if we could be like an everyday hero for someone. Someone's going to speak of how great you were. The story of how our family got saved is incredible. It was a former addict who was giving out gospel tracts and invited my dad to a church. He then gave that out to my dad. My dad then visited the church, but the guy told my dad the wrong church because he wasn't too sure where the church was. My mum got saved. My dad got saved. Ultimately, years later, the entire family got saved. I went on to become a pastor, all through one gospel tract, all through one kind act, and said, hey, this older gent said, hey son, there you go, I think you need Jesus in your life, and prayed with my mum and dad as my mum was pregnant with me. You do not know the smallest random act and what it does. Mark Twain said this, that compassion, real compassion, requires we stand up for what we believe in, regardless of the odds. I wonder if our action is meeting what we say. Break my heart for what breaks yours, yet we do nothing about it. Heal my heart and make it clean, yet we maybe hold this little bit of jadedness towards helping people in our minds. If it would be okay, just for a few minutes, I ask you guys just to watch the screens. I want to share with you guys an incredible story of some lives being changed by some strangers just like you and I through the work of compassion. How cool is that, hey? That's just some everyday heroes that decided they want to do something for someone else. I would love for you today, I obviously work and represent compassion. I'd love for you today to consider sponsoring a child. And a huge thanks to those of you who do already rather. I wonder if there's just something in your world that you could do today, tonight, this week, where you can be someone else's everyday hero, really unpacking this faith on your front line, on your doorstep. Just to wrap this up, I'll just finish this story with you and I'll pray and hand back to Keith. When I was about 21 years of age, I was at this youth kind of meeting. It's kind of what you do when you're still in church at 21. They don't know what to do with you. You're not quite an adult, but you're not youth. Then I was at this youth meeting and my friend Thomas is there, and he shows up with this guy with long hair and a big goatee, and I had to double take, but it was Doug. It was the same Doug that I saw years and years ago. And I'm like, oh my days, it's Doug. And I kind of looked over and I was like super awkward. Like, I don't get nervous very often. I'm quite good on the spot, off the hoof, but my hands were sweating. I had hair at the time, my hair was sweating. Everywhere was sweating. And I just walked over to him and I said, hey Doug, my name's Donald. Explained who I was, explained the context. He's like, yeah, how's things? How are you? I was like, yeah, I'm cool. And I said, Doug, I really got to apologise, dude. I said, kind of what happened when we were back in school. I know things got really bad for you. I said, I should have done something. I should have spoke up. I should have done anything. And he was really gracious. He says, nah, man, that was not you. He said, that wasn't you. He said, that's not on you. He said, you and me, we're cool. And it's not often in life you get a second chance, kind of like that. Like, I was so thankful to be able to do that. And I sometimes see Doug on occasion, and I kind of get like we're not friends, we're not buddies, but it's like the tough guy, cool guy kind of like nod from him when I see him. It's almost like a bit of an acknowledgement. But I've kind of made it like a bit of my motto in life that I don't like to see people excluded from things. I spent many years as a youth pastor working in Govan in Glasgow, and the poverty there is horrific. But my wife and I did everything we could to make sure that kids never felt second class or undervalued because they couldn't afford to come to things. We would find a way to cover the cost because I wanted to be someone else's everyday hero. And I wonder if for you today, if I can challenge you, inspire you, almost thank you for those of you who are everyday heroes, that we can live out our faith in the front line, maybe in a different way. Can I pray with you before we finish? Lord, I just thank you for these wonderful people. Lord, I thank you for, Lord, their grace in hosting me today, their willingness maybe just to listen to a lad from Glasgow share his heart for compassion and for really making a difference in the world we occupy. Lord, I pray a special blessing upon them all. I thank you for those who sponsor. Lord, I just pray that you bless them. That those who are refreshing others, they themselves are being continually refreshed. Lord, and we just thank you for this church. Lord, we pray that its best days are yet to come. Lord, there are many new families to be won for Christ. There are marriages to be restored, children that are going to become prodigals and just step into an incredible future in you, Lord, for future pastors and leaders, Lord, just really to be raised up through the ranks in this incredible local church in this community. We pray this in your name. Amen. Thank you so much.